They arrived on the shores of the Philippines not as conquerors, but as survivors. Fleeing war and persecution, they sought refuge in a land of strangers. You know the familiar names that built empires of banking, retail, and industry in the Philippines. But what if I told you that the very foundations of modern Philippine commerce were laid by a handful of families whose story has been all but forgotten? These are the stories of 10 pioneering Jewish families who built business empires from nothing. They would go on to shape the nation's economy and culture in ways we still feel today. This is the hidden history of their struggle, their success, and their incredible legacy. When you think about what made the modern Philippines, a few threads come to mind: Spain, America, China, and its own vibrant indigenous cultures. But there's another thread, one less visible but just as crucial, stitched into the fabric of its commerce and society. It's the story of a small but extraordinarily resilient group, the Jewish people. Their journey to the archipelago wasn't one of grand design, but of quiet desperation and tenacious hope. Long before the 20th century, the first Jewish presence in the Philippines can be traced to the 16th century, during the Spanish Inquisition. These were the Marranos, or conversos, Jews forced to convert to Christianity, who secretly practiced their faith. The first recorded instance involves two brothers, Jorge and Domingo Rodriguez, who arrived in the 1590s. They were tried and convicted by the Inquisition in Mexico, since no such tribunal existed in Manila. For centuries, Spanish law made an organized Jewish community impossible, leaving their presence scattered and secret. Everything changed in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The opening of the Suez Canal in 1869 created a direct trade route between Europe and Asia. At the same time, the switch from Spanish to American rule in 1898 brought a new era of religious freedom and economic opportunity. The Philippines, with its strategic location, became a beacon for a new kind of pioneer. These weren't just businessmen looking for profit. Many were refugees, literally running for their lives. They fled the Franco-Prussian War, the Bolshevik Revolution, and, most consequentially, the rising tide of Nazism in Europe. They arrived in Manila and found a culture known for its innate hospitality, a people who, despite their own struggles, possessed a deep capacity for empathy. In this fertile environment, a handful of Jewish families put down roots. They were entrepreneurs, innovators, and philanthropists. They didn't just build businesses, they built communities. And in the nation's darkest hour, they would play a key role in a little-known story of heroism, transforming their adopted home into a sanctuary for those fleeing the Holocaust. This is the story of 10 of those pioneering families. We'll count them down, from the figures who sustained the community to the titans who redefined an entire nation's commerce. Their legacies aren't just in the companies they founded, but in the spirit of resilience they embedded into the heart of the Philippines. Number 10. The Hyman family. Our countdown begins with a family that represents the many threads of Manila's early Jewish community, the Hyman family, led by patriarch Julius Hyman. Arriving in the early 20th century, the Hymans were part of a growing, cosmopolitan Jewish population that numbered around 500 people by 1936. This community was a diverse mix of nationalities, American, European, and Middle Eastern, and was known for its secular, business-oriented mindset. Unlike some families on our list who built massive empires, the Hyman family's contribution was more foundational. They were merchants, part of a network of importers and traders vital to Manila's economic lifeblood. In an era before giant conglomerates, it was families like the Hymans who kept goods flowing, understood the dance of supply and demand, and helped establish Manila as a key commercial hub in Southeast Asia. Their story isn't one of dramatic firsts, but of the steady, essential work of building a commercial society. They operated in a Manila that was rapidly modernizing under American influence. On the bustling Escolta Street and in the surrounding districts, Jewish merchants like the Hymans established their presence, building relationships with Filipino, American, Spanish, and Chinese business communities. The Hyman family's impact is a great example of the collective contribution of the broader Jewish community. While they may not have built the grandest department stores, their daily work in trade and commerce laid the groundwork for larger enterprises. They were part of the critical mass that made the Jewish community a respected part of Manila's social and economic structure. Their legacy is a reminder that history isn't only shaped by towering figures, but also by the cumulative efforts of families who, through quiet industry, create the ecosystem for growth. The Hyman family represents the everyday entrepreneurs who chose the Philippines as their home, contributing to its economic vitality and helping build a stable community that would later perform incredible acts of humanitarianism. Number 9. The Ephraim family. The story of the Ephraim family is one of the most dramatic chapters in the history of Jewish migration to the Philippines. They arrived in 1938 not as entrepreneurs seeking opportunity, but as refugees fleeing for their very lives. Their journey was part of a desperate wave of immigration as the world was closing its doors to the Jews of Europe. The rise of Nazi Germany had unleashed a storm of persecution, and the Ephraims were among the fortunate few who found a safe harbor in the distant Philippines. They arrived in coincidence with a moment of profound moral courage in Philippine history. The Jewish community in Manila, though small, was keenly aware of the Nazi threat. Frank Ephraim, a member of the family, would later become a crucial chronicler of this period, compiling his own accounts and those of other refugees in his powerful book, Escape to Manila, From Nazi Tyranny to Japanese Terror. His work ensures that this unique story of rescue is not forgotten. The Ephraims and their fellow refugees, known as Manilaners, weren't just passive recipients of aid. They were professionals,